Right, we're up to hey. So the Rebbe is further explaining in general the two kinds of birur, two kinds of refinement. And there's a birur that Bechlal does not happen Shabbos, but it is also, and the general idea being that refinement from bad, from good, that not. But in good itself, food from food, as it were, this is an avodah on Shabbos, and hence there's karbonos on Shabbos, and we eat on Shabbos, and so on. So this is what the Maimon is explaining. The analogy is Nahar Dinur. Nahar Dinur, the river of fire. So it's the river of fire that's needed to burn away actual sin, actual negativity that the neshama has to go through. And not only sin, actually. Every neshama has to undergo it, even just by virtue of coming into the guf. This has to be burnt away. The imagery of this world that prevents the neshama from absorbing elikus, seeing elikus. But then, so that's one level of Nahar Dinur. So that's to remove something that is negative on whatever subtle level that might be. And it comes after Gehenna. This is after the neshama is cleansed of Gehenna. There is still the union of Nahar Dinur. So that is, as I said, it's not so much the negativity in terms of sin, but the akshama, the coarsening, and just the material, the relationship with the physical, the relationship with the physical, that the neshama has to divest itself of. Again, that's after Gehenna, after the purging and the cleansing and the various other processes that neshama might have to undergo after death. Kafakela, the slingshot, and other things. Hibit, purging of the grave, as described in the Moses and mentioned in one of the Hayom Yoms, and how one can avoid that or lessen the experience. So learning by heart, Torah, Isis of Torah. It's a big shock to die. It's a bigger shock for the one who dies than anybody else, than the living. So much so that you may have seen that we tell the neshama the name just before burial. We tell the person their name, orientate them. So if a person has learned by heart Isis of Torah, this is a great assist during that transitional period. At any rate, so that's the Nahar Dinur that comes after death. That's analogous to the avodas haberurim. But then there's the Nahar Dinur between Gan Eden Elyon and Gan Eden HaTachton. And that is in Kedusha itself. And that, he said, is similar to Rabbi Zera in Torah Bechlal. Unlike Tefillah. Tefillah is about engagement in the world. Torah would not engage in the world. Torah was sitting and learning, and the Chachamim would paskin, and that's how the reality would be in the world, through a psak din, not through a birur, but milamayla lamata. As you mentioned yesterday, on a simple level, when you're learning Torah, the mind says the mind. For most of us, can't occupy two thoughts at one time. So if you're thinking about Torah, you're not struggling with the Yetzer Hara. But Nevish Obama says a struggle. Tefillah is a struggle. But nonetheless, even in Torah Guf, there is the union of Nahar Dinur in Torah itself. And that he illustrated with the story of Rabbi Zera. Rabbi Zera fasted. He brings here the Girsa 100 times, there's a Girsa 40 times, to forget Talmud Bavli when he went to Yisrael to become part of Talmud Yerushalmi. And that's because the whole way of learning in Talmud Yerushalmi is a whole higher order, which necessitates a forgetting, a letting go of the whole previous structures. And the way Torah is learned in Talmud Bavli, as is evidenced from just looking at the two Gemaras. So that is an example of Nahar of a birur that's in Kedusha itself. That's the Nahar Dinur, in other words, between Gan Eden Elyon and Gan Eden Tach. So we're going further into this inyan. So he started Oisei, and he pointed out from the Zohar what appears to be a contradiction. The pasuk says, one pasuk is Vayita Hashem Alikim Gan Be'edim Mekedem. Hashem planted the garden in Eden. And then there's a pasuk that says that a river flows out of Eden and waters the Gan. So Eden and Gan are not synonymous. So the Zohar, and so the first pasuk seems to imply that they are. So the Zohar answers that the two levels of Eden, the higher Eden and the lower Eden. Let's bear in mind, remembering, as he goes on to say that what's common to both levels is the Nekudas HaTainug. And what's the Nekudas HaTainug? It engages the essential self. It touches on the I am, as opposed to I want, I understand, I feel, I do. Rotzen Seichel with this behavior. Is the I am. So this is a very relative state. But one is the Etzem HaTainug and the Ha'ara of Tainug. Deeper expressions, lesser expressions, what's common to all of them is this isn't about the thing, it's about the self. This is what that I'm engaged in is because it's negeya to my essential self. So that not always the case, obviously. Most often, a person does something to use contemporary language with such mindfulness that it's negated the essential self. The essential self is engaged. Lavdafke. So there's the ha'odas, the gilui of Tainug in its various manifestations. So that's what's being described over here. There's the Gan in Eden, and then there's the Gan, or there's the Eden, which is synonymous with the Gan, and then there's the Eden that waters the Gan, that waters the garden. So let's begin that again. Visa B'Zohar, 2 lines, the third line from Moishe. She's based beginning Eden, so the Zohar says there's 2 levels of Eden. Eden Ilah, the supernal Eden, Eden Tatar, the lower Eden. Eden Ilah, the higher Eden, or Gan Eden, the alien. So it goes in detail on the level of Moichin Stimba, that very deep level, as he goes on to say the next words, Vina Chacham Bechlalosa, in general, Chachma. So when a person is laboring to understand something, and then has this euphoric, this moment of discovery of Chachma, and in Chachma itself, there are levels. So that is an expression of that moment, is a deeply engaging and satisfying moment. That's the union of Eden Ilah. Eden Tata, Koyal Zah, and Eden Tata refers to a pleasure, an essential pleasure, that experienced or not in the deep intimacy of the mind, but emotions. That's the end of the Eden, the Tainug of the Seichel and the Tainug in the Midas. That's Eden. What about the garden? The Gan is the Makabel, the garden. Shemekabel me'Eden. So what is Makabel from Chachma Bina? Chinas Bina, and what's Makabel from Zoh Malchus? Chinas HaMalchus. They are the expressions of that Tainug. Bina develops the essential idea, and Malchus expresses the emotion in words, behavior. And these two worlds of Bina and Malchus are Alma Diskasya, Alma Disgalia. Hidden world and revealed world, meaning Bina within the person is within himself, hidden within himself. Bina is a level that's Bachlal beyond creation. It's like Bina Datzilus here. And Malchus is already Hashem's word that is invested in creation, that produces the revealed world, the manifested worlds, like by a person. His speech is where he reveals his presence, and Chachma Bina is his intimate internal self. So spelling out Bina is Mekabel from Eden Ilah B'chinas Chachma. B'chinas HaMalchus Mekabel is Eden Tata. Malchus is the recipient of the Eden Tata, the low level of Eden, B'chinas Zod, the divine Midas. Now he explains further. This we did yesterday. We're up to here more or less. The matter is as follows. Yeah, everybody's following. Yeah, we're good. Okay, good. The Hine Klolis in Eden, as we said, we're not Tainug. All the levels of Eden in general, delight, are the union of Tainug, B'chinas Atik, and Tainug in its purest expression is the level of Atik. Arich, of course, is I want, Hashem's will, but Atik is where Atzmos, the I am of Hashem, is manifest. Pnimius HaKeser. Now, we just said moments ago, She'eden hu b'chinas Chachma stimo v'klalas HaChachma. So we just said it's, now we're saying it, we just said it's Atik, but moments ago, and a few lines earlier, we said that Eden is manifest and expressed in Chachma, Stima, and in general Chachma, that moment of Chachma. So the answer is it's all relative. How do you do it? Shegam HaChachma kifi shehireishis HaSvidus, even Chachma as it's the first of the Svidus, as Chachma then goes on to produce Bina, in Iklolis, and Yonahu, what is that? What is it in general? What's the Nekuda? Kifi she'atik tainug nasecha. It really draws on the essential self, Tainug. It's manifested in a different way. Okay, this is a big Indian. He says, see Samach Vav, and in many places. As we said before, there's in this discovery, this novel discovery of something, is a very deep pleasure, very deep euphoric moment, very deep. It's so deep the person is transfixed in, and it's not manifest as, oh, that aha moment. That's the initial Tainug. It's not the pure Tainug as it is in Etzem HaNefesh, in Atik. The I am here, we're talking about a concept, but the person is deeply engaged in the discovery of this idea. Because the person manifestly is an intellectual. That's where we're a thinker. I think, therefore I am. That's the essential state. So in the discovery of an idea, there it engages the person in a very deep, essential way. That's Chachma. But the order of Tainug continues to manifest, or could manifest in the lower levels as well, as we learned in the previous Maimons. He's going to bring again now. Let's see. And this is the first level of Tainug and Ishtal Shalus, is in Chachma. Like the Gemara says in Rishalmi, Rabbi Avo, if I'm not mistaken, so his face was shining. Okay, from the story there goes, yeah, the Matronisa, a Roman matron, a woman, a matron, a Roman noble. So she saw, I think it was Rabbi Avo, that his face was shining. So she's one of three things. One of three things. forgot them. But the Nakuda is, they're all Hakshama, Gashmis, the monetary things. You didn't have to work and you came either inherited money or you had the kind of business that doesn't require, that's why your face is shining, that you don't have to be invested in it. I'll remind myself to come to me. One of the third things she says is that he raises chazerim. Okay, that's a panosa, that little effort. They need a little work to attend to them, as everybody knows. And there's a nice profit. You don't have to make sure that the stall is clean and what you feed them and everything else, as opposed to other animals that require attention. So that was the third thing. That's what you do for a living, is all monetary things. In the end, she was wrong. And what was it? What was the Tainug? But the point was, David brings this once, that the Tainug was so manifest that she was struck by it. His face is shining. So because of her hakshama, her material, her obviously very materialistic state, so she interpreted it on some financial level. I'm sure whatever she said, I'll be told it is biyurim. I don't know what they are after it's even explained anywhere. But in the Kudi is that why was his face shining? So let's continue in the text. Because he found a new tisefta, a new teaching, a new mission. Another lashon is ha'tshek. He found an ancient one, which also fits in Tainug. That's what he was, so his face was shining about. A new discovery, a new teaching that he had not known earlier. So it's not stam ordinary seichel, engaging in a subject and engaging it and understanding it intellectually, but missing the discovery. So we're talking about a seichel yasha stam, which is just simply logic, but not necessarily discovery. Rather, it's because of a tisefta chadatas as a tzov uponov, his face literally became illuminated, shined, megileh tiny because of the tiny. So that's the first giloy of tainug in ishtal shalus in nefesh ha'adam is in chachma. Therefore, it's also relatively called Eden, because tainug is manifested. So what's the garden that receives it? That's been that the river flows out of Eden to water the garden. That chachma is now drawn into bina, and the person begins the process of analysis. So the tainug is lost already. Tainug was in the euphoric moment. Now it's the dogged process of analysis as he analyzes and develops the essential discovery that he came across, or that he discovered, or that welled up from deep within himself, from the koyach hamaskil. It's lost in bina. He says no. The river flows out of Eden to water the God. So there's a giloy of tainug in bina. As he goes on to say, now, even though bina is understanding. And we just said, Seichel HaYosher, that's not where Tainug lies. Tainug lies in the discovery. The Kamokaim is, quoting here, from the Zohar, which we've encountered many times, is Galus Atik Bebina. There is a unique kind of Tainug that comes Dafkin Bina when you've sorted it all out, the satisfaction that's fully developed. It's not in so much the process of the development, but the end result, that in the Kuda has been developed and faithfully explained. There's a deep gishmak, there's a tainug in binin, in some way that's even greater than the discovery. Always a paradox that the lower levels, in the end, connect to the essential levels in a more direct way, but it's only after a laborious process. Let's, in the words of the Maimer, when he successfully develops bina, I keep on jumping line, the lines are jumping. When you understand in such a way that it's faithful to the Nakuda has been respected and fully developed, because it's the danger when it comes to developing the idea that it can go completely off and distort the Nakuda. So that's why there has to be the union of Havein b'Chachma. It's a statement in the Sefer Yitzirah. Understand with Chachma. Understand with Chachma. Understand with wisdom. It means that to make sure that in the bin and the binyan, the building of the idea, that it's faithful to the Nakuda, to the original vision. In life in general, a person can have a vision, a goal that motivates a whole project. In life, it's a business or anything else. And then if we get lost in the details and development, we lose sight of what the whole vision, the whole Nakuda of all this is. And that can happen very drastically. The whole point is corrupted and lost, and it's taken a life on its own. That's not a bina that's makabel from Chacham. There's no tainug there. It becomes just complicated. Kind of like building rooms and rooms and rooms and rooms, and they're not integrated in one nakuda. The rooms get their own life. The rooms of a house have to be one nakuda. We live here. They have to be integrated and connected. That's a true home. So when our true home is connected, is built, and all of the rooms and the chambers, etc., are all expressive of the Nekudas HaChachma, which in the end is us, the I, or the person that lives there. It's a big tainuk in the completion of that project. Nekuda beicholet, Eloshin in Zaya, Nekuda beicholet, that the Nekuda remains in the chamber. The chamber is bina, but the Nekuda isn't lost. The Nekuda is there, defining and governing every expansion, every manifestation. So as I bought tainuk, so in the completion of being a faithful to Chachma, in other words, in every prat you see in every detail, every edifice, you see the Nekuda. Nekuda shines there. It's all one inyan, vast, sprawling business with all kinds of compartments and departments. But everywhere it's the vision, the one Nekuda, there's a tainuk in that. Adanabend. So many pratim, and they're all threaded with one nakud. There's a big ishmak there, a big timing. So, then the tainuk comes, she's galusi b'chachma. It was first manifested in chachma, eventually spashtos. Then the tainuk is manifested in all of these details and components of the idea of the project, as the case may be. Where the development is ever faithful and expressive of the Nekuda. Let's explain Chassidus, the more the development of the idea, the more richer and deeper is the Nekuda mind is deepened. And that the Talmud brings out in the Rav more than his own teachers gave him. So there's a tainuk there. So that's the conclusion. This is the Gan Eden Elyon. This is the revelation from the Eden Elyon. As in Chachma is Atik, like the example you found the new Tesefta, new discovery. As that is then expressed in Bina. This is an avoid, this manifests in this in of einig of tainuk. He stresses avoid this other minion or einig. Doesn't elaborate. We're not just talking about an experience, but an avoid of einig that permeates the pratim of bina. There's many expressions of that, but in all of his, one of them is that in all of his learning and development, never lost and ever present, shining is that this is Chachmas Hashem. This is the Eibish's Torah. That Nekuda permeates all of the elaborate svaras and explanations, etc. One example of the Avodah of Tainug in as Chachma is revealed and received and expressed in Bina. We say Chachma, I mean the Nekudas HaTainug of Chachma. So that's all. Yeah, we have some measure of understanding. Yeah. So this is all what Gan Eden, the alien, Dashba of Eden in the Gan. And then, so the I think, I'm not sure about it. I think that's just the chayda that V'yita Hashem Elikim Gan Be'eden. That's this very close relationship of Chachma and Bina. Then the Nor goes out of Eden toward the Gan. That's already a lower expression of Zoh and Malchus. Because Chachma and Bina is very much intimate within the self. It's still Alma Discussion. But going into Malchus, it's already complete projection, outside creation, Hashem's word that you speak, person speaks is relating to the outside, etc. So let's go now to the second level. So what's Ganed Natachten? The lower level of Eden. What's the lower level of Eden to begin with? That's Bechin Zoh. The Midas. What's tiny got to do with Midas? We'll see. Shenikra Zer Anpin. Zoh is called Zer Anpin, which means small faces, literally, which implies a lesser Giloi than obviously Arich Anpin, long or a big face, not long face as in a sad face, but long as in a big Giloi. Anpin is face, Pnimius. So the Midas Azer Anpin. Shezeo Klolis Inyan Midas, that's Midas. But we're talking about Midas that are connected to Moishe. It's got to be this thread. We have to trace the thread of Tainug all the way down. So there's got to be an interconnection. First in Chochmah, then we explain down Bina, now Midas. Because we're talking here about Midas and the connection between Midas and Moishe. Kedu as it's known, Sheyesh Moichin. Again, I'm going to go back. We're talking about Midas that they're connected to the Moichin, not Midas on their own, just the natural emotion. But the emotion that is cultivated by Moichin, as is known that there's a level of Moichin, obviously, that produces emotions in the heart. There's complete abstraction. It's a level of learning, of Moichin, of Seichel that has nothing to do with emotion. It's completely objective and doesn't engage the person anyway. It's information. And then there's Moichin, Shaykh to Midas. In general, it's Das. In general, it's Das. Das is the personal connection to the idea that stirs the self. So therefore, such Midas that are intimately bound with Moichin and governed by Moichin, so therefore carry through, and such Midas is also on a compromised level, but nonetheless, Shegam Behem Nimshach, Me'ena Tainug, there's some kind of Tainug there as well. It started with the euphoric moment of Chochmah, and then Bina, and then continues. So one Hemshech here, we're talking one flow of the Tainug that carries through, even as the Seichel is expressed in Midas and manifested in Midas. Like an example of a business, even. So there's the original, the discovery, this idea, this euphoric, a new idea, a new business model, or a new, not even a model, that's already been there, but it's just a new idea in business, and then develops it in Bina. And then as it continues, it goes into Midas. There's the chesed aspect of the business, there's the gevura aspect, there's things you have to hold back, there's the spending, there's all of these dynamics. But if they're faithful to the Nekudas HaChochmah, then there's the Tainug there as well. Commission's boy Liel, the Maim Shiftins, as we learned in the previous Maimah, Shafila b'Midas, Esha'ora Satana given in Midas, there's a Ha'ora, the Etzema Tainug, the Ha'ora of Tainug. It's true, not the same as his experience in the wow moment of Chochmah and in the moment of Bina when the idea is fully developed and reflective of the Nekudas and big Tainug there. It's not the same, but lower. Nonetheless, there's Tainug there as well. Again, provided it's a seamless progression of how the Nekudas are now manifested in further manifestation of, again, chesed and gevurah, different contrasting components, or maybe even one component in the midas, as it's expressed in midas, in expression, holding back. And he continued with this next line, and from there, from the midas, therefore, conclusion that this tainug is then expressed in malchus, in the actual realization and the building of it, the words of it, the communication of it, the actual malchus. To be continued with that tomorrow, zeroing in on malchus.